My stepmother wore a $5,000 Chanel suit to my father's funeral, but 3 weeks later, I found my 7-year-old self's most prized possession, a cracked glass angel, stuffed into a trash bag marked donations. That was the moment I realized Camille wasn't just grieving, she was erasing my father's life. And when I looked at the $12 million estate will she slid across the table, I realized she had been planning to erase me, too. The funeral was small. Dad wanted it that way, apparently. At least that's what Camille told everyone who asked why she'd only invited about 30 people to say goodbye to a man who'd built half the commercial properties in the county. She wore black Chanel and cried elegantly into a monogrammed handkerchief. I wore the pearl necklace Dad gave me for my college graduation and cried until my face swelled. Camille met my father 4 years earlier at some charity gala for children's hospitals. She was 38, a decade younger than him, with the kind of polished beauty that came from expensive salons and personal trainers. Dad was lonely. Mom had been gone for 6 years by then, and I think he just wanted someone to share dinner with, someone to fill the silence in that big house. They married 8 months later in a courthouse ceremony. No white dress, no guests, just Dad and Camille, and a judge who probably married 3 other couples that same afternoon. I tried to be happy for him, I really did, but Camille had this way of smiling that never quite reached her eyes, and she called me sweetie in this voice that sounded like she was trying to remember my name. The first year wasn't terrible. She redecorated the house, which stung because Mom's touches disappeared room by room, but Dad seemed content. The second year, she convinced him to retire early, said he'd worked hard enough, deserved to enjoy life. Then came the diagnosis last January. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, maybe 9 months if he was lucky. He lasted 11. Camille transformed into the devoted wife overnight. She accompanied him to every appointment, held his hand during chemotherapy, posted carefully filtered photos on social media with captions about strength and love and fighting together. Her friends commented with heart emojis and prayer hands. I visited every weekend, sometimes more. I'd bring Dad's favorite soup from the deli on Morrison Street, the one that made matzo balls the size of tennis balls. We'd watch old westerns, and he'd fall asleep halfway through, his breathing labored even with the oxygen. Camille was always there, always hovering, always reminding me not to tire him out. The last time I saw Dad conscious was a Thursday in late November. Thanksgiving was in a week. He squeezed my hand and told me he loved me, that he was proud of me, that everything was taken care of. I thought he meant his will, his affairs, the practical things dying people arrange. I didn't know he meant Camille had already taken care of everything herself. He passed on a Sunday morning. Camille called me around 11, her voice trembling just right. He went peacefully, she said, and I could hear her lighting a cigarette in the background. The funeral happened fast. Too fast, I realized later. Camille had everything planned within 48 hours. She'd already contacted the funeral home, already written the obituary, already decided on cremation, even though Dad always said he wanted to be buried next to Mom. He changed his mind, Camille explained when I questioned it. Toward the end, he told me cremation felt simpler. I wanted to argue, but grief made me numb. I let her handle it. Big mistake. The week after the funeral, Camille invited me to the house for a discussion about your father's estate. She said it like that, formal and cold, like I was a business associate instead of his daughter. I arrived on a gray afternoon that threatened snow. The house smelled like cinnamon candles, the expensive kind Camille bulk ordered from some boutique in California. Christmas decorations covered every surface, but they were all new, white and silver and crystal, nothing like the mismatched collection of ornaments Dad and Mom and I had accumulated over 30 years. Camille sat in the living room wearing cream cashmere, her legs crossed, a leather folder on the coffee table between us. "I know this is difficult," she began, her voice dripping with practiced sympathy, "but we need to discuss practicalities." She slid the folder toward me. Inside were documents, A will dated 6 months earlier, right after Dad's diagnosis worsened. I scanned the pages, my hands starting to shake before I even finished the first paragraph. The house went to Camille. The vacation property in the Hamptons went to Camille. Dad's investment accounts, his stocks, his business holdings, all went to Camille. I got $50,000 and my mother's wedding ring. $50,000 from a man worth at least $12 million. I don't understand, I said, the words coming out strangled. Camille sighed like I was being difficult. Your father wanted to ensure I was taken care of, she explained. We discussed it extensively. He knew you were young, capable, building your own career. He didn't want you to become dependent on an inheritance. He wanted you to make your own way, like he did. It sounded exactly like something Dad would never say. This doesn't make sense. Dad always told me the business would be mine someday. He talked about it constantly, about how I'd take over, how he was building something to pass down. Camille's expression shifted, just slightly. The sympathy vanished, replaced with something sharper. Things change, Piper. People change their minds. Your father made his wishes clear. She emphasized my name like she'd just remembered it. Wait, no, not Natalie. Let me use a fresh name. Things change, Piper. People change their minds. Your father made his wishes clear. Can I see the original? Can I talk to his lawyer? Mr. Brennan retired last year. Your father worked with someone new for this will. She handed me a business card from the folder. Gregory Finch, estate attorney, very reputable. The card was heavy stock, embossed lettering. I turned it over in my hands, my mind racing. I'd like to speak with him. Of course. Camille stood, smoothing her cashmere. Though I should mention, contesting the will would be expensive and ultimately futile. Your father was of sound mind when he made these decisions. Multiple witnesses can attest to that. She walked me to the door, her hand light on my back, guiding me out like I was a door-to-door salesperson who'd overstayed their welcome. One more thing, she said as I stepped onto the porch. I'll need you to clear out any remaining items you want from your old room by the end of the month. I'm converting it into a yoga studio. The door closed before I could respond. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at that business card, my breath fogging the windows. The Christmas lights on the house blinked in perfect rhythm, white and cold and nothing like home. That's when I called my best friend, Harper. She did what? Harper's voice came through sharp and furious after I explained everything. Piper, that's insane. Your dad would never cut you out like that. The will says he did. Then the will is wrong, or forged, or she manipulated him. He had cancer, he was on medication, he wasn't thinking clearly. Camille said there were witnesses, that everything was legal. So get your own lawyer, a real one, not whoever this Gregory Finch person is. I stared at the card again. Something about it bothered me, but I couldn't place what. I don't even know where to start. Harper was quiet for a moment, then said, My firm handles some estate cases. Let me ask around. There's got to be someone who specializes in this kind of thing, someone who can actually fight her. It'll cost a fortune I don't have. Piper, she just stole your inheritance. You find the money, you fight. We hung up and I drove to my apartment in a daze. It was a tiny one-bedroom in a converted building near the university, the kind of place with thin walls and a radiator that clanged all night. I'd lived there for 3 years, saving money, building my career in graphic design, exactly like Dad always encouraged. Dad, who apparently decided I didn't deserve the empire he'd built. I couldn't make it make sense. That weekend, I went back to the house. Camille's car wasn't in the driveway, which felt like a small mercy. I let myself in with the key Dad gave me years ago, praying she hadn't changed the locks yet. The house was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the one Mom picked out at an estate sale when I was 10. I wondered how long before Camille got rid of that, too. I headed upstairs to my old room, steeling myself for whatever damage she'd already done. The door was ajar. Inside, boxes lined the walls, most already sealed with packing tape. My bookshelf was empty, my desk was gone. The walls were bare except for lighter squares where posters used to hang. I opened the closest box and found my high school yearbooks, swimming trophies, framed photos of me and Dad at various ages, my whole childhood packed away like it never mattered. That's when I noticed the filing cabinet in the corner. It was Dad's, the old metal one from his home office, scratched and dented from decades of use. Dad kept important papers in there, documents related to his business, things he said I'd understand when I was older. The cabinet was unlocked now, and completely empty. I pulled each drawer open, confusion building. Every single file was gone. The cabinet wasn't even dusty inside, like someone had wiped it clean recently. My phone buzzed. A text from Harper. Found someone. Roxanne Brennan. She's supposed to be ruthless with estate fraud. Want her number? Wait, no, I used Brennan already. Let me fix that. Found someone. Roxanne North. She's supposed to be ruthless with estate fraud. Want her number? I texted back immediately. Yes. Another message came through seconds later with a phone number and a note. She's expensive, but Harper says she wins. Call her Monday. I sat on the floor of my empty childhood bedroom, surrounded by boxes of a life Camille was erasing, and made a decision. If Camille wanted a fight, I'd give her one. I took the glass angel ornament from my purse, where I'd been carrying it like a talisman. The gold wings caught the afternoon light streaming through the bare window. Dad always said I was stronger than I knew, that I had Mom's steel spine and his stubborn streak. Time to prove him right. I called Roxanne North that Monday morning, right when her office opened. Her assistant put me through after a brief hold, and Roxanne's voice came through crisp and professional. Miss North, my name is Piper Wells. My father passed away recently, and I believe his wife manipulated him into changing his will. Tell me everything, Roxanne said, and I could hear her already taking notes. I spent 40 minutes laying out the whole story. Dad's diagnosis, Camille's sudden devoted wife act, the rushed funeral, the will that made no sense, the empty filing cabinet, all of it. Roxanne listened without interrupting, occasionally asking sharp questions that made me realize how many details I'd overlooked in my grief. When she finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Miss Wells, I'm going to be direct with you. Cases like this are difficult and expensive. Even if we prove undue influence, which is hard to do, courts are hesitant to overturn a will without concrete evidence of coercion or fraud. My heart sank. So you're saying there's no point? I'm saying it won't be easy, but here's what bothers me. The empty filing cabinet, the rushed cremation, the fact that she's already trying to erase your presence from the house, those aren't the actions of someone with nothing to hide. So you'll take the case? I'll take the meeting. Come to my office Thursday at 2. Bring any documents you have related to your father's estate, any correspondence with Camille, anything that seems relevant. We'll see what we're working with. I agreed and hung up, adrenaline replacing the numbness I'd been carrying for weeks. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. Roxanne North's office sat on the 14th floor of a glass building in the financial district, the kind of place where even the receptionist looked like she could ruin your life with a well-placed phone call. I arrived Thursday at 1:45, clutching a folder with every scrap of paper I could find related to Dad's estate. Bank statements I'd saved from when he added me as an emergency contact, old birthday cards where he'd written about my future with the company, photos of us at construction sites wearing matching hard hats. It felt thin, pathetically thin against whatever legal fortress Camille had built. Roxanne met me in a conference room with windows overlooking the city. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that looked like they could spot a lie from across the room. Ms. Wells, She shook my hand with the kind of grip that meant business. Let's see what we're dealing with. I spread everything across the table. She examined each item methodically, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. Is it enough? She looked up, her expression unreadable. It's a start, but I need to be honest with you, this will get ugly and expensive. My retainer alone is $15,000. The number hit me like cold water. I had maybe $8,000 in savings, and that was supposed to last me until I found more freelance work. I can't afford that. I know. Roxanne leaned back in her chair, which is why I'm proposing a contingency arrangement. I take 30% of whatever we recover, but only if we win. You pay expenses as we go, which will still run several thousand, but it's better than 15 up front. Why would you do that? Her mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Because your stepmother is sloppy, and sloppy people make mistakes. That empty filing cabinet bothers me. So does the timing of everything. And honestly, she tapped her pen against the table, I don't like women who marry dying men and steal from their children. I felt something loosen in my chest. Hope, maybe, or just relief that someone finally believed me. Okay, yes, let's do it. We spent the next hour going over strategy. Roxanne would start by requesting copies of all estate documents through official channels, then interview anyone who'd witnessed the will signing. She'd also look into Gregory Finch's background, see if there were any connections to Camille that shouldn't exist. One more thing, Roxanne said as I gathered my papers. Don't contact your stepmother. Don't go to the house. Don't give her any ammunition to claim you're harassing her. Let me handle all communication from here on out. I agreed, even though part of me wanted to storm back to that house and tear it apart looking for answers. The next 2 weeks crawled by. Christmas was 9 days away, and the city exploded with lights and music and the kind of aggressive cheer that made my grief feel even heavier. I threw myself into work, taking every design project I could find, trying not to think about how this was supposed to be the first Christmas without Dad, but with some inheritance security. Instead, I was barely scraping by and fighting for what should have been mine. Harper invited me to her family's Christmas party the Saturday before the holiday. I almost declined, but she insisted, said I needed to get out of my apartment before I drove myself crazy. The party was at her parents' place in the suburbs, a warm, rambling house that smelled like pine and baking cookies. Harper's mom hugged me the second I walked in, the kind of hug that made my throat tight. "We're so sorry about your father, sweetheart," she said, and I could tell she meant it. I was helping myself to punch when Harper pulled me aside, her face flushed with excitement, or wine, probably both. "Okay, don't freak out, but I have news about your case." My stomach dropped. What kind of news? The good kind, I think. Remember how I said my firm handles some estate work? Well, one of the paralegals was talking about a case that sounded familiar, and when I dug a little, guess whose name came up? Harper, just tell me. Gregory Finch, the lawyer who did your dad's will, he's been investigated twice for ethics violations. Nothing stuck, but both cases involved elderly clients with suspiciously changed estates. The room suddenly felt too hot. Does Roxanne know? I texted her the information this morning. She said she's already looking into it. I grabbed Harper's arm. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. That's what best friends are for, taking down evil stepmothers and their sketchy lawyers. But something nagged at me as I drove home that night. 2 ethics investigations meant Gregory Finch had a pattern, which meant either he was very unlucky or he was very good at not getting caught. Or someone was protecting him. Roxanne called me on Monday morning, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "We need to meet, today if possible. Something came up." I rearranged my entire schedule and was in her office by noon. She didn't waste time. Gregory Finch has done estate work for 6 clients in the past 3 years. 4 of those clients died within 18 months of signing new wills that significantly benefited their spouses or caregivers. The other 2 are still alive, but both are elderly with serious health conditions. That's not a coincidence.
No, it's not. But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled property records for Finch's office building. Want to guess who owns it? My mind raced through possibilities. Camille? Close. A shell company called Evergreen Holdings. And when I dug into Evergreen's registration paperwork, I found 2 names listed as officers. She slid a document across the desk. I saw Camille's name first. Then I saw the second name, and my entire world tilted. Nathaniel Barnes, Dad's former business partner? I don't understand, I said, the words coming out numb. Nathaniel worked with Dad for 15 years. He was at the funeral. He sent flowers. He also co-owns a company with your stepmother that employs the lawyer who rewrote your father's will. Roxanne's voice was gentle but firm. Piper, I think they've been running an estate fraud scheme together. Your father wasn't the first victim, and he won't be the last. The pieces started clicking together with horrible clarity. Nathaniel had been around for years, trusted by Dad, present for every major business decision. He would have known exactly how much my dad was worth. He would have known about his health problems before most people. He would have known how vulnerable he was. And he'd introduced Dad to Camille at that charity gala. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Nathaniel set this up. He introduced them." Roxanne nodded. "That's my theory. Nathaniel finds the mark, Camille plays the devoted wife, Finch handles the legal paperwork. They've probably done this multiple times."
Can we prove it? We're going to try. I've already filed a motion to access your father's medical records and any documentation related to the will signing. If he signed the will without being 100% in body and mind, or if there were irregularities in the witness statements, we've got grounds to contest. What about Nathaniel and Camille? What about Evergreen Holdings? That's the criminal side, and that's where things get complicated. We need hard evidence of fraud, not just suspicious connections. But here's what I'm thinking. If we can get one of them to flip on the others, the whole thing unravels. A thought occurred to me, dark and satisfying. What if we make them think someone's already talking? Roxanne's eyes sharpened. What do you have in mind? We spent the next hour crafting a plan that was probably ethically questionable, but felt righteously perfect. The following morning, Roxanne sent letters to all 3 of them, Camille, Nathaniel, and Gregory Finch. The letters were carefully worded, suggesting that an unnamed party had come forward with information about estate fraud, and that her firm was advising cooperation in exchange for reduced liability. Then we waited. Nathaniel cracked first. He showed up at Roxanne's office 2 days later without an appointment, his face gray with panic. I watched through the conference room camera feed that Roxanne had set up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "I want immunity," Nathaniel said the second he sat down. "I'll tell you everything, but I need immunity." Roxanne kept her expression neutral. "That depends on what you're telling me and whether the district attorney agrees you're worth the deal. So start talking." And Nathaniel did. He'd been embezzling from Dad's company for 3 years, small amounts at first, then larger as he got bolder. When Dad started reviewing the books more carefully after his diagnosis, Nathaniel panicked. He needed Arthur gone before he discovered what he'd done. That's when he approached Camille, whom he'd met through Gregory Finch's other operations. The plan was simple. Camille would marry Arthur, play the devoted wife, and ensure he signed a new will leaving everything to her. After Arthur passed, they'd split the estate 60-40, with Finch taking his cut off the top for handling the paperwork. The medications made it easy. We just had to time the signing for when he was most out of it. Gregory brought witnesses who didn't ask questions. I stopped breathing. "Do you know anything about his death?" Roxanne asked, her voice dangerously quiet. No, I swear we didn't. We just waited, and maybe Camille encouraged him to skip some treatments, said they were too hard on him, but we didn't actively kill him." The distinction felt meaningless to me. They'd stolen his last months, stolen his peace, stolen his ability to make real choices about his own death. Roxanne got everything on record, every detail of the scheme, every document Nathaniel had kept as insurance against Camille and Finch turning on her. When he finally left, Roxanne came into the room where I was watching. I couldn't stop shaking. "We've got them," she said simply. "All three of them."
The next part happened fast. Roxanne handed everything to the district attorney, who moved on it within days. The DA's office had apparently been building a case against Gregory Finch for months, and Nathaniel's testimony gave them exactly what they needed. They arrested Camille 2 days before Christmas. I wasn't there when it happened, but Harper found the news article online and sent it to me with about 15 exclamation points. The photo showed Camille being led out of Dad's house in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled, her face twisted in rage. Gregory Finch was arrested the same day at his office. Nathaniel took his immunity deal and turned state's witness. He'd lose her legal career and probably face civil suits from other victims' families, but he'd avoid prison. The irony wasn't lost on me that his cooperation was the only reason any of them would face real consequences. Roxanne filed to have Dad's will thrown out, citing fraud and undue influence. With Nathaniel's testimony and the evidence of the scheme, the judge agreed within 2 weeks. Dad's original will was reinstated, the one that left everything to me as he'd always planned. Camille's trial was set for April. The prosecutor was charging her with fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of an elderly person. Combined with Gregory Finch's charges, they were both looking at significant prison time. I stood in Dad's house on New Year's Eve, the place finally mine again, legally and completely. I'd spent the day boxing up Camille's belongings, which would go into storage until the trial concluded and she could deal with them herself. The white and silver Christmas decorations were gone. I'd found our old ornaments in the attic, the boxes shoved behind insulation, like Camille couldn't be bothered to throw them away properly. I hung the glass angel on a small tree I'd set up in the living room, right in the center where it belonged. The crack on the left wing caught the light, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Harper came by around 8 with champagne and takeout. "To your dad," she said, raising her glass, "and to you for fighting back." "To having a best friend who works at a law firm," I countered, and we both laughed, the sound filling up the empty house. My phone buzzed with a text from Roxanne. "Estate fully transferred. You're officially a very wealthy woman. Congratulations." I looked around the living room, at the mismatched ornaments and the worn furniture and the grandfather clock that had ticked through my entire childhood. The money mattered, sure. It meant security and options and the ability to continue Dad's legacy. But what mattered more was that Camille was exactly where she deserved to be. So was Gregory Finch, and Nathaniel would spend the rest of his life knowing he'd betrayed someone who'd trusted him completely. I thought about what Dad told me that last Thursday, about everything being taken care of. He'd been right, just not in the way any of us expected. He'd left me enough evidence in old cards and photos and shared memories to fight for the truth. And I found a lawyer ruthless enough to expose the whole rotten scheme. The glass angel twirled slightly on its branch, gold wings gleaming. "Merry Christmas, Dad," I whispered. "I got them. I got them all." Outside, fireworks started early, people celebrating the new year, the fresh start, the chance to begin again. I raised my glass to the tree and smiled. Sometimes the best gift is justice.